The cockpit voice recorder captured it at exactly 9:43 a.m. on March the 7th, 1993. Captain Richard Brennan's voice, steady for 22 years of flying, cracked for the first time in his career. "I have 5 men with guns in my cabin. They say they have explosives strapped to 3 passengers. They want $20 million and safe passage to Cuba, or they start killing people in 15 minutes. The tape kept rolling. In the background, a woman screamed. A child cried. Then a voice, cold and mechanical, cut through the chaos. "Tell them we're not bluffing. Tell them about the school teacher in seat 12A. Captain Brennan's breath caught. The flight attendant just confirmed it. "They've wired her with something. She's got 2 kids on this plane with her." The recording went silent for exactly 7 seconds. When it resumed, Brennan's voice had changed completely. "This is Flight 402 declaring an emergency. We have a hijacking in progress. 56 souls on board, 5 armed suspects, possible explosives. We need immediate assistance." The flight had departed Miami International at 9:15 a.m., bound for Boston Logan. Nobody on the ground knew that in the next 4 hours and 37 minutes, that secret cockpit microphone would record negotiations, threats, prayers, and decisions that would be studied by the FBI for decades. Nobody knew that 3 of the 56 passengers would never see their families again. And nobody knew that the pilot's final decision would either save everyone or turn Flight 402 into a fireball over the Atlantic Ocean. Subscribe now and leave in the comments. What city are you watching from? Flight 402 was supposed to be routine. A Sunday morning departure, half-empty cabin, smooth weather forecast all the way to Boston. Captain Richard Brennan, 54 years old, had flown this route 217 times. First Officer Amanda Chen, 31, was logging hours toward her captain certification. 3 flight attendants managed the cabin. Sandra Hayes, lead attendant, had worked for the airline for 19 years. Rachel Morrison and Tom Phillips were newer but trained and competent. The passenger manifest told ordinary stories. Sarah Mitchell, 39, a middle school teacher from Fort Lauderdale, traveling with her 2 sons, Danny, 9, and Marcus, 7. She'd saved for 8 months for this spring break trip to visit her sister in Boston. Seat 12A, middle seat, both boys on either side of her. James Rodriguez, 62, retired postal worker, heading home after visiting his daughter in Miami. He'd served in Vietnam, kept to himself, read Tom Clancy novels on flights. Seat 8C, aisle. Patricia Vance, 27, pregnant, 7 months along. Her husband couldn't get time off work, but insisted she attend her best friend's baby shower in Boston. Seat 14F, window. She'd felt the baby kick during takeoff. The 5 suspects boarded separately. No flags on security. 1993 airport screening meant metal detectors and X-ray machines, but procedures were different, looser, less sophisticated. Marcus Webb, 34, the leader, boarded first. Ticket under the name Michael Warner. Seat 6B, black leather jacket, sunglasses, carried 1 small duffel bag. Inside that bag, disassembled pistol parts, plastic explosives molded to look like electronics, detonators disguised as batteries. Eddie Reeves, 29, called Snake by the others, sat in 11D. Vincent Cole, 41, the explosives expert everyone called Hawk, took 23A. Raymond Torres, 26, and Leon Patterson, 32, the muscle, spread out in the rear cabin. They'd planned this for 7 months, studied flight schedules, tested security, built relationships with someone on the inside who provided information about procedures. The execution was precise. 9:38 a.m., 37,000 feet over the Atlantic, 140 miles off the Florida coast. Webb stood first, moved to the cockpit door. In 1993, cockpit doors weren't reinforced. No federal air marshal program, no hard lock protocols. Just a standard door with a simple lock. Sandra Hayes, the lead flight attendant, was preparing the beverage service when Webb grabbed her from behind. The gun appeared from his jacket. Assembled in the lavatory 5 minutes earlier. Don't scream and nobody dies. His voice was quiet, almost gentle. That's what Sandra would tell investigators later. He sounded like he was ordering coffee. In the back, Snake and Torres moved simultaneously, guns out. Passengers gasped. A woman in row 17 fainted. Tom Phillips, the male flight attendant, started toward them. Snake fired once into the ceiling. The bullet punched through the cabin wall. Pressurization alarms didn't trigger. The hole was small, but the message was clear. Next one goes in a passenger. Sit down. Everyone sit down. Patterson moved through the aisles, zip-tying passengers' hands, row by row. 56 passengers, systematic and fast. Sarah Mitchell pulled her boys close. Don't look. Close your eyes. But Danny was 9. He saw everything. James Rodriguez, the Vietnam vet, assessed the situation with trained eyes. 5 suspects. Handguns, at least 2. Unknown explosives capability. Organized, military precision. These weren't amateurs. Hawk, the explosives expert, approached Sarah Mitchell's row. He carried a vest, homemade, wires visible, small blocks of what looked like clay pressed into pockets. He looked at Sarah, then at her 2 boys. Lady, I'm real sorry about this. He strapped the vest on her over her sweater. Her hands were already zip-tied. She couldn't resist. Danny started crying. Marcus buried his face in his mother's shoulder. The vest had a simple switch. Hawk showed it to everyone nearby. Dead man switch. I let go, it blows. She moves wrong, it blows. Anyone tries to be a hero? She and everyone within 15 feet turns into red mist. 2 more vests went on passengers. James Rodriguez in 8C. Patricia Vance, the pregnant woman, in 14F. By 9:42 a.m., the cabin was secure. That's when Webb knocked on the cockpit door. Captain Brennan heard the knock. Standard procedure was to verify identity through the peephole. He saw Sandra Hayes' face, pale, terrified. Behind her, a gun pressed against her spine. He opened the door. Webb pushed inside, gun immediately on First Officer Chen. You fly the plane, you follow instructions, you live, you deviate, and I start executing passengers. Do you understand? Brennan nodded. Chen's hands trembled on the controls. Webb picked up the radio handset, handed it to Brennan. Tell them. Everything. Now. That's when the recording captured Brennan's emergency declaration. On the ground, Miami Center air traffic control erupted into controlled chaos. Controller David Park had been on duty since 6 a.m. A hijacking alert triggered protocols that hadn't been used since the 1980s. He immediately contacted his supervisor. Calls went out to FBI, FAA, airline operations, military. Within 8 minutes, the crisis management machine activated. FBI Special Agent Victoria Nash got the call at 10:02 a.m. She was Miami Field Office, specialized in crisis negotiation, 12 years of experience, hostage situations, bank robberies, domestic standoffs, but never an aircraft hijacking, not a real one, not like this. She arrived at Miami Center by 10:35 a.m. The operations room was packed. Airline executives, FAA officials, military liaisons, weather specialists, everyone talking at once. Nash took control. Everyone quiet. What do we know? Flight 402 departed Miami 9:15 a.m. 56 passengers, 3 crew, 5 hijackers, confirmed armed, 3 passengers rigged with explosives. Current position 190 miles northeast of Miami, tracking toward Bermuda. Fuel endurance approximately 4 hours from now. Demands are $20 million cash and safe passage to Cuba. She looked at the airline VP. Can you get $20 million in 4 hours? He was already on the phone. We're working on it, but Cuba won't allow them to land. We've already contacted their government through State Department channels. They're refusing. Nash processed this. So we have 4 hours to either meet impossible demands or figure out how to bring that plane down safely with 56 people and 3 live bombs on board. The room went silent. On Flight 402, Webb was in the cockpit explaining his timeline. You have until 2 p.m. 4 hours and 18 minutes from now. Fuel burns until 1:30 p.m. That gives you 30 minutes to get us to Cuba or put that money on a boat we can meet. After 2 p.m. I start killing 1 passenger every 15 minutes. The pregnant lady goes first. Captain Brennan's mind raced. Standard hijacking protocol was to comply, descend, land at the nearest suitable airport. But Webb was smart. He knew that landing meant tactical teams, snipers, hostage rescue. He was keeping them airborne. Brennan had to try. We can land in Nassau, refuel, give everyone time to talk. Webb smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. Captain, I'm not stupid. We land anywhere except Cuba, and your FBI shoots us the second the door opens. We stay up here until 2 p.m. Then people start dying. Or you get creative and everyone lives. Your choice. First Officer Chen spoke quietly. Captain, we need to establish a holding pattern. Fuel consumption at current speed and altitude gives us until 1:40 p.m. Then we have to descend regardless. Brennan made the decision. He turned the aircraft into a wide orbit pattern, circling 200 miles offshore, far enough that military jets couldn't easily intercept, close enough that radio communication remained strong. He keyed the radio. Miami Center, Flight 402. We are entering a holding pattern at current position. Hijackers demand $20 million delivered by maritime vessel by 2 p.m. Eastern, plus guaranteed safe passage to Cuban airspace. They have 3 passengers wired with explosives and have threatened to begin executing hostages if demands are not met. On the ground, Agent Nash listened to the transmission. Her team was assembling: FBI negotiators, behavioral analysts, tactical specialists. Military had scrambled 2 F-15 jets from Homestead Air Force Base. They'd be on station within 20 minutes. But what could jets do against a civilian aircraft full of hostages? She picked up the dedicated phone line that had been established to the aircraft. Patched through the airline's communication system. Captain Brennan, this is FBI Special Agent Victoria Nash. I'm the lead negotiator. Can you put me in contact with the person in charge? Brennan handed the phone to Webb. Webb listened, then spoke. Agent Nash, here's what's going to happen. At 2 p.m., if I don't have confirmation that $20 million is on a boat heading to our coordinates and that Cuban airspace is open to us, I kill the pregnant woman. At 2:15 p.m., I kill one of the teacher's kids. At 2:30 p.m., I kill the other kid. Then the teacher. Then I work through the rest until you give me what I want, or we run out of people. Your move. He hung up. Nash stared at the dead phone. She'd negotiated with terrorists, cartel members, psychopaths. But something about Webb's voice told her this was different. He wasn't bluffing. He wasn't trying to negotiate. He had a plan, and he was going to execute it unless she found a way to stop him. The problem was, she had no idea what that way could be. The Miami field office war room transformed into chaos, controlled by procedure. Agent Nash stood at the center, coordinating 7 different agencies. FBI tactical teams were on standby at Miami International. Coast Guard had 2 cutters moving toward the coordinates Flight 402 was circling. Military had the F-15 jets maintaining distance, watching but not engaging. The airline had crisis management on site, and nobody had a solution. The money was actually the easy part. The airline's insurance company had procedures for exactly this scenario. By 11:15 a.m., bank managers were opening vaults on a Sunday, pulling bundled cash, $20 million in hundreds and fifties. The bills would fit in 4 large duffel bags. They could have it ready by 12:30 p.m. The Coast Guard could have it on a boat by 1 p.m. Delivery to the coordinates by 1:45 p.m. That part could work. Cuba was the problem. Nash had State Department on speakerphone. The Cuban government representative was clear. We will not allow a hijacked American aircraft into our airspace. We will not provide safe harbor for criminals. We will not participate in this situation in any way. If the aircraft enters Cuban airspace without authorization, our military will respond. Nash pressed. What does respond mean? Forced landing. If they refuse, we shoot them down. Nash closed her eyes. So we deliver $20 million to armed hijackers, and even if they get the money, they have nowhere to go. Correct. On Flight 402, the situation was deteriorating in different ways. Sarah Mitchell, the teacher with the explosive vest, was hyperventilating. Panic attack. Her son Danny held her hand. Mom, breathe. Remember what you taught us. In through the nose, out through the mouth. But Sarah couldn't focus. The vest was heavy. The wires pressed against her chest. Every movement made them shift. Hawk, the man who'd strapped it on her, watched from 2 rows back. His expression was unreadable. James Rodriguez, the Vietnam vet, also wearing a vest, remained calm. He'd been in worse situations. Had a gun to his head in Saigon in '72. Survived. This was different, but the principle was the same. Stay calm. Watch for opportunities. Assess the enemy. He'd been watching the 5 hijackers carefully. Webb was the leader. Smart, organized, military background, Rodriguez guessed. Marines, maybe, or Army Rangers. The way he moved, the way he gave orders. Snake, the one who'd fired the warning shot, was unstable, jumpy, kept checking his watch. Nervous energy. That was dangerous. Nervous people made mistakes. Hawk, the explosives guy, seemed conflicted. He'd apologized when putting the vest on Sarah. Rodriguez noted that. Maybe exploitable. Torres and Patterson, the muscle, were just following orders. Not thinkers. Followers. Patricia Vance, the pregnant woman in the 3rd vest, was praying quietly, rosary in her zip-tied hands. She'd been Catholic her whole life, went to church every Sunday, never missed confession. And now she was going to die on a plane with a bomb strapped to her belly and her unborn daughter. She wondered if her husband would remarry, if their daughter would have known her at all, if there'd be enough left of her body to bury. At 11:40 a.m., Agent Nash tried a different approach. She called the aircraft again. Captain Brennan answered. "Put me through to your leader." Webb took the phone. "Agent Nash, we've been through this. I don't want to talk. I want money in Cuba." Nash kept her voice steady. "The money is ready. We'll have it on a boat by 1 p.m., but Cuba won't accept you. Even if we give you everything, you have nowhere to go." Webb was quiet for a moment. "Then you need to convince Cuba to change their mind. You have 2 hours and 20 minutes. Click." Nash turned to her team. "We need options." Tactical said what everyone was thinking. "We can't storm the aircraft while it's in the air. We can't shoot it down with 56 civilians on board. We can't let them land in Cuba even if Cuba agreed, because we'd never see those hostages again. The only play is to convince them to land somewhere we control." "How?" "Keep them talking. Run down the clock. When fuel gets critical, they have to land. Then we have tactical options." Nash shook her head. "They've thought of that. That's why the execution timeline starts at 2 p.m. Before fuel becomes critical, they'll start killing people while they still have leverage." The behavioral analyst spoke up. "Profile suggests Webb is the planner, military or paramilitary background. This operation is too clean for amateurs. The explosives are real. The vests are functional. He's not bluffing. We need to find his pressure point. Everyone has one." Nash asked the obvious question. "What does he care about? Money, freedom. Probably not ideology. This isn't political, it's financial. So he cares about survival. He wants to live through this. That's our leverage." On the aircraft, time was becoming a physical presence. Passengers watched the minutes crawl. Some prayed. Some cried silently. Others sat in numb shock. The flight attendants, still mobile but monitored, tried to maintain some semblance of service. Rachel Morrison brought water to passengers. Tom Phillips checked on Sarah Mitchell and her boys. Her breathing had stabilized, but she was pale, shaking. Danny whispered to Tom, "Is my mom going to die?" Tom wanted to say no, wanted to promise this beautiful 9-year-old boy that his mother would be fine, but he'd been trained never to lie to passengers in emergencies. "I don't know, buddy, but everyone's working really hard to make sure she doesn't, okay?" Danny nodded. He was trying to be brave. Tom saw that. Saw this kid holding himself together for his little brother, for his mom. It broke his heart. In the cockpit, Captain Brennan was running calculations, fuel, distance, options. First Officer Chen was doing the same. "Sir, at current consumption, we have until 1:38 p.m. before we must begin descent. If we descend to 15,000 feet, we can extend that slightly, maybe until 1:50 p.m. But after that, we're committed to landing whether we want to or not." Brennan understood. The laws of physics didn't care about hijackers or hostages. Fuel burned, engines stopped, aircraft descended. They had choices now. In 50 minutes, they'd have none. Webb was on the phone with Nash again. 12:15 p.m. "Agent Nash, I need an update." Nash had nothing good to tell him. "The money is ready. The boat is ready. But Cuba's position hasn't changed. We're still working on it." Webb's voice hardened. "Then work faster. Because at 2 p.m., that pregnant lady's husband becomes a widower and his daughter never gets born. You have 1 hour and 45 minutes to solve the Cuba problem, or I solve the passenger problem. The line went dead again. In the war room, the airline VP spoke up. There's another option. Let them land in the Bahamas. Nassau. We have relationships there. We can coordinate with their government. Nash considered it. And then what? Same problem. They land. We're in a standoff on the ground. With bombs, we can negotiate from a position of strength if they're on the ground. At least we can control the environment. The tactical commander agreed. Ground standoff is better than airborne. We can establish perimeter, cut power, control food and water. We have options. Nash made a decision. Okay, new plan. We offer Nassau. Tell them we'll have the money waiting there. Refuel the aircraft. Then negotiate the Cuba piece separately. Maybe we can convince them Cuba's off the table, but somewhere else is possible. Get their thinking changed while they're on the ground and we have control. She called the aircraft. 12:23 p.m. Captain Brennan, Agent Nash. I need to speak with your hijacker. Webb came on. Talk. We can't get Cuba, but we can offer Nassau. The money will be there. You can refuel. We can continue negotiations from there about alternative destinations. Maybe Mexico, maybe Venezuela. But you need to land. You can't stay up there forever. Webb listened. Then he laughed. It wasn't a pleasant sound. Agent Nash, do you think I'm stupid? I land in Nassau, and FBI tactical teams storm the aircraft. Everyone dies. The answer is no. We stay airborne. You get me Cuba, or people start dying. Simple. Nash tried again. But you'll run out of fuel. You'll have to land eventually. Webb's voice went cold. Then I guess we'll see how many people I can kill before we run out of fuel. 60, 50. Maybe we can't get all of them, but I bet we can get most. Starting with the ones wearing presents from Hawk. Nash felt the situation slipping away from her. Wait. Just wait. Give me more time. Webb checked his watch. You have 1 hour and 37 minutes. Then the clock starts, and people start dying. And Agent Nash, when that pregnant woman's vest detonates, the recording's going to be studied in your academy for decades as an example of what happens when negotiators fail. Make sure you're listening carefully. Click. Nash looked around the room. We're out of options. Someone give me something. Anything. Nobody spoke, because there was nothing to say. Flight 402 was running out of time, and 56 people were running out of hope. And then the weather changed everything. Meteorologist Janet Fielding had been monitoring the situation from the National Weather Service office in Miami. A system she'd been tracking since Friday was developing faster than models predicted. At 12:40 p.m., she called the FBI war room. You need to see this. On the screen, satellite imagery showed a low-pressure system intensifying rapidly southeast of Bermuda. Fielding pointed to the data. This storm wasn't on anyone's radar yesterday. Now it's organizing. Wind shear is decreasing. Water temperature is perfect. This thing is going to become tropical by tonight. Agent Nash didn't understand why this mattered. And that affects us how? Flight 402 is currently holding position about 50 miles from the leading edge of this system. In approximately 30 minutes, they're going to start experiencing turbulence. In 60 minutes, severe turbulence. By 2 p.m., the outer bands are going to make their position completely untenable. Nash saw it now. They'll have to move, or land. Exactly. And if they try to stay airborne in that weather with passengers zip-tied and 3 people wearing explosive vests, it's not going to end well. Severe turbulence could detonate those vests accidentally. Nash called the aircraft. 12:43 p.m. Captain Brennan answered immediately. Captain, we have a weather situation developing. There's a tropical system forming directly in your path. You need to see the imagery. She had the data transmitted through the aircraft's weather radar system. Brennan studied the screen. First Officer Chen zoomed in on the returns. Captain, she's right. That wasn't there an hour ago. It's building fast. Brennan called Webb forward. Showed him the radar. We have a problem. We can't stay in this position. The weather's going to force us to move within 30 minutes. Webb studied the screen. His expression didn't change. So move. Stay in the air. Brennan shook his head. You don't understand. This system is large and it's organizing. If we divert north, we're heading into commercial air traffic lanes over the Atlantic. If we divert west, we're heading back toward Miami, where your FBI friends have jets waiting. If we divert south, we're heading into the Caribbean with no suitable airports in range. And we're running out of fuel regardless. Webb thought about this. How long can we hold current position? 15 minutes, maybe 20. Then we're in severe turbulence with passengers zip-tied and explosive vests that aren't exactly built for aerobatic maneuvers. Webb saw the problem. If the aircraft hit severe turbulence, if Hawk or one of the others lost grip on the dead man switches, the vests would detonate. Everyone would die, including him and his crew. That wasn't the plan. The plan was money and freedom, not suicide. He made a decision he'd been avoiding. We land in Nassau. Brennan felt a surge of hope. Okay. I'll coordinate with traffic control. We can be on the ground in 40 minutes. Webb held up his hand. Wait. Not yet. He went to the phone. Called Agent Nash. Change of plans. We're landing in Nassau. But here are my conditions. The money is there when we land. 4 duffel bags. 20s and 50s. Small bills. Unmarked. We refuel completely. Full tanks. You pull every law enforcement officer back 1 mile from the aircraft. Every single one. I see 1 cop, 1 agent, 1 uniform within 1 mile, and I start detonating vests. We refuel, take the money, and we're gone. You track us, follow us, try anything tactical, and I kill hostages. You give me 3 hours after takeoff from Nassau before you start following. That's my offer. Nash knew this was the best she'd get. Agreed. But you need to leave the passengers in Nassau. Take the money. Go. But leave the people. Webb laughed. No. The passengers are my insurance policy. They stay with me until I'm somewhere safe. Then I let them go. Nash tried one more angle. At least leave the kids. The teacher's 2 boys. They're 9 and 7. They haven't done anything. Webb was quiet for a long moment. Fine. The kids stay in Nassau. And the pregnant lady. She's no good to me if she goes into labor. But everyone else stays. Deal? Nash didn't hesitate. Deal. Get that plane on the ground. Webb turned to Brennan. Take us to Nassau. Brennan immediately coordinated with Miami Center. Flight 402 is diverting to Nassau International. We need priority clearance and emergency services on standby. At 1:04 p.m., Flight 402 broke from its holding pattern and turned southwest toward Nassau. The F-15 jets followed at a distance. On the ground in Nassau, Bahamian authorities scrambled. The airport was evacuated. Fire and rescue positioned equipment and FBI tactical teams, officially back 1 mile as promised, set up staging areas. The money arrived by Coast Guard helicopter at 1:22 p.m. 4 duffel bags, $20 million, placed on the tarmac exactly where Webb specified. Flight 402 touched down at 1:28 p.m. Smooth landing despite everything. Brennan taxied to the remote hard stand. Stopped the aircraft. Shut down 1 engine. Kept 1 running as Webb ordered. Webb addressed the cabin. Listen carefully. We're on the ground. Fuel truck is coming. When we're refueled, we're leaving. Most of you are coming with us. But the 2 kids with the teacher and the pregnant lady are getting off here. Everyone else stays. Anyone tries anything. And Hawk starts pressing buttons. Understood? Silence. Terror. But also, for Danny and Marcus Mitchell and Patricia Vance, desperate hope. The fuel truck approached. Bahamian ground crew, thoroughly searched by FBI, no weapons, no tactical gear, began refueling. It would take 40 minutes to completely fill the tanks. Webb had Hawk escort Sarah Mitchell and her sons to the forward door. Unstrap the vest from Sarah first. Hawk removed the vest carefully, placed it on an empty seat. Sarah pulled her boys close. You're going to be okay. Listen to the police. Call Aunt Jennifer in Boston. Tell her I love her. Danny was crying. Mom, we can't leave you. You have to. Be brave. Take care of your brother. Sarah kissed them both. Then Hawk opened the door, deployed the stairs. Danny and Marcus walked down. At the bottom, FBI agents in plainclothes, no visible weapons, met them, guided them quickly away from the aircraft. Patricia Vance was next. vest removed. She walked down the stairs slowly, hand on her belly, made it halfway down before her legs gave out. Agents caught her, carried her to safety. 2 ambulances were standing by. Paramedics immediately began checking the kids for injuries, shock. Patricia was loaded into the second ambulance. By the time the fuel truck disconnected at 2:14 p.m., Danny and Marcus Mitchell and Patricia Vance were in a hospital 3 miles away, safe. The other 53 passengers were still on Flight 402, still zip-tied, still terrified, and still flying into an unknown future with 5 armed hijackers and 2 explosive vests still active. Webb got on the radio. "Agent Nash, we're fueled. We're leaving. Remember, 3 hours before you follow. You track us before that, people die." Nash had no choice. "Agreed. Where are you going?" Webb smiled. "You'll figure it out eventually." Flight 402 taxied to the runway. At 2:19 p.m., it took off again. Heading southwest, into the Caribbean, the F-15 jets held position over Nassau, waiting 3 hours, 180 minutes. At 5:19 p.m., they could resume tracking. Until then, Flight 402 disappeared into the sky, and 53 people disappeared with it. In the Miami war room, silence. They'd bought time, saved 4 lives, but 53 remained in danger. And now they had no idea where the aircraft was going. Nash looked at the radar screens. The tropical system was still building. Commercial traffic was being rerouted. Weather was going to get worse. And somewhere out there, a hijacked aircraft full of hostages was flying blind into the Caribbean with enough fuel for maybe 5 more hours. The airline operations manager spoke up. Based on fuel and direction, possible destinations include Jamaica, Haiti, Dominican Republic, Venezuela, Colombia. We don't have overflight clearance for any of them. We don't have landing clearance. And some of those countries have very different relationships with the United States. Nash understood. If Webb landed in Venezuela or Colombia, extradition would be complicated, maybe impossible. He could disappear, keep the money. The hostages would eventually be released. Probably. But the hijackers would be gone. 3 hours passed slowly. The war room tracked what little data they had. Commercial pilots reported seeing an aircraft matching Flight 402's description, heading south past the Turks and Caicos at 3:45 p.m. Then nothing. At 5:19 p.m. exactly, the F-15 jets resumed tracking. They headed southwest following the last known course. At 5:38 p.m., they spotted Flight 402, circling a position over the Caribbean Sea, 200 miles north of the Colombian coast. The lead F-15 pilot radioed Miami Center. "We have visual. Aircraft appears to be in a holding pattern. Altitude 5,000 feet. No apparent distress." Nash got on the satellite phone to the aircraft. "Flight 402, this is Agent Nash. We've held our end of the deal. 3 hours. Now you need to land and release the hostages," Webb answered. "Almost there, Agent Nash. Just working out some final details. Stand by." The line went quiet but remained open. Nash could hear background noise, voices, movement. And then, unexpectedly, she heard something that made her blood run cold. Shouting, gunfire, screaming, the sound of struggle, and then nothing but static. The recording from the cockpit voice recorder, later recovered, captured what happened in those final minutes with brutal clarity. At 5:41 p.m., James Rodriguez, the Vietnam veteran, made his move. He'd been waiting 6 hours for an opportunity, studying the hijackers, watching their patterns. Snake was the weak link, nervous, distracted, kept checking his watch. At 5:40 p.m., Snake walked past Rodriguez's row toward the lavatory. Torres was in the rear galley. Patterson was near the front. Hawk was in his seat, monitoring the vests. Webb was in the cockpit. Rodriguez waited until Snake came back from the lavatory, used a technique he'd learned in military survival training. His hands were zip-tied in front, not behind. He'd worked the tie slightly loose over hours of subtle movement. As Snake passed, Rodriguez lunged, got his tied hands around Snake's neck from behind, applied pressure to the carotid artery. Snake struggled, reached for his gun, fired wildly. Bullets punched through the cabin ceiling. Oxygen masks deployed. Passengers screamed. Torres came running from the galley. Rodriguez held Snake in front of him as a shield, yelled to the other passengers, "The door! Get the cockpit door open." 3 male passengers, hands still tied, rushed the cockpit door. Webb heard the commotion, came out with his gun raised, fired twice. 1 passenger went down, hit in the leg, kept crawling. The second passenger tackled Webb low. They went down together. Patterson ran forward. First Officer Chen, still in the cockpit, saw her chance. She grabbed the crash axe mounted behind her seat, came out swinging. Patterson saw her coming, raised his gun. Chen's axe took his hand off at the wrist. He screamed. Went down. Captain Brennan was on the radio. "Mayday, mayday, mayday. We have a confrontation on board. Multiple shots fired. Passengers are fighting the hijackers. We need immediate assistance." Hawk, the explosives expert, was the critical variable. He had the detonators for the remaining 2 vests, one on James Rodriguez, one on an elderly woman in row 19. He could end everything right now, kill everyone. But he didn't. Instead, he carefully disarmed both vests, placed the detonators on the floor, put his hands up. "I'm done. I'm out. This wasn't supposed to go like this." Torres saw what was happening, saw Patterson down, saw Hawk surrendering, saw Snake unconscious in Rodriguez's grip, saw Webb being held down by 3 passengers. It was over. He dropped his gun, put his hands behind his head, went to his knees. Webb fought harder, got one arm free, reached for his gun. Captain Brennan, 62 years old, father of 3, grandfather of 5, flew Boeing 737s for a living, tackled Webb from behind, held him down until Rodriguez, still controlling Snake, could zip-tie Webb's hands with a tie taken from another passenger. The entire confrontation lasted 4 minutes and 17 seconds. By 5:45 p.m., all 5 hijackers were secured. Passengers held them down. Flight attendants collected the weapons. 3 handguns, 1 still in Snake's waistband. First Officer Chen checked the aircraft systems. The bullet holes in the ceiling had compromised structural integrity slightly, but nothing critical. Oxygen masks were deployed but not needed. They were high enough that pressure loss wasn't dangerous. She repressurized manually using emergency procedures. Captain Brennan got on the radio. "Miami Center, Flight 402. Hijackers are secured. We have control. 3 passengers injured, 1 gunshot wound to the leg. 2 others minor injuries from the struggle. We are declaring emergency and requesting immediate diversion to nearest suitable airport. Repeat, we have control." The war room erupted in cautious celebration. Agent Nash's hands were shaking. "Captain, can you confirm status of explosives?" Brennan looked to Hawk, who was zip-tied and held by 2 large male passengers. The explosives expert spoke clearly. "Vests are disarmed. Detonators are separated. I can walk your crew through making them completely safe. I'm cooperating fully. No one else needs to get hurt." Nash authorized it. "Captain, coordinate with the hijacker who's volunteering information. Make those devices completely safe. Then get your aircraft on the ground." Brennan nodded to First Officer Chen. She went into the cabin with Rachel Morrison, the flight attendant. Hawk, under guard, talked them through disconnecting the wiring, removing the explosive material, making everything inert. By 6:03 p.m., the vests were neutralized. The injured passenger, a 41-year-old accountant named Michael Perry, who'd taken a bullet in his left thigh during the struggle, was receiving first aid from Tom Phillips, who'd taken an EMT course years earlier. Perry was stable, in pain, but alive. The other 2 injured passengers had minor cuts and bruises. Nothing serious. Captain Brennan programmed a course to Grand Cayman Island, closest international airport with adequate facilities. Flight time 38 minutes. He addressed the cabin over the PA. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain. The situation is under control. The hijackers are secured. We are diverting to Grand Cayman, where emergency services and law enforcement are waiting. Medical personnel will treat the injured. The rest of you will be processed and arrangements will be made to get you home. I want you to know that what you did today, the courage you showed, saved lives. Thank you." The cabin was silent. Then someone started clapping. Then everyone. Applause. Tears. Relief. Sarah Mitchell's 2 sons were safe in Nassau. Patricia Vance and her unborn daughter were safe. 53 passengers had survived. 3 were injured but would recover, and 5 hijackers were in custody. At 6:47 p.m., Flight 402 touched down at Owen Roberts International Airport in Grand Cayman. Emergency vehicles surrounded the aircraft. Royal Cayman Islands police boarded immediately. FBI agents arrived on a charter flight 40 minutes later. The 5 hijackers were taken into custody. Extradition paperwork was already being prepared. Medical teams treated the injured. Michael Perry was transported to Cayman Islands Hospital, where surgery removed the bullet and repaired tissue damage. He'd walk with a slight limp, but made full recovery. Passengers were interviewed individually. Each gave statements. The investigation took 3 days. Then they were flown home. Sarah Mitchell was reunited with Danny and Marcus in Nassau. They flew to Boston together 4 days later. Patricia Vance gave birth to a healthy daughter on May 2, 1993, named her Victoria after Agent Nash. James Rodriguez declined all media interviews, said he just did what needed doing, went back to his quiet life in Boston reading Tom Clancy novels. The investigation revealed the full scope of the conspiracy. Webb, Reeves, Cole, Torres, and Patterson had planned the hijacking for 7 months. They'd bribed a security contractor at Miami International to provide intelligence on procedures. That contractor was arrested 2 days after Flight 402 landed. Webb and his crew had criminal histories, armed robbery, weapons trafficking, but nothing on this scale. They'd studied previous hijackings, learned from mistakes others made, built explosives that were crude but functional. They almost succeeded. The money was real, the threat was real, but they didn't count on weather forcing a landing, didn't count on Vietnam veterans who knew how to fight, didn't count on passengers who refused to die quietly. Federal charges came quickly: conspiracy, air piracy, kidnapping, weapons violations, use of explosives, attempted murder. The trials took place in Miami federal court starting in January 1994. Webb got 4 consecutive life sentences plus 60 years. No possibility of parole. Snake got life plus 40. Hawk, who cooperated and disarmed the vests, got 40 years with possibility of parole after 25. Torres and Patterson got 35 years each. The security contractor who helped them got 15 years. The airline implemented new security measures: better screening, reinforced cockpit doors, though those wouldn't become standard until after 2001, enhanced training for flight crews on hijacking scenarios. The FAA studied Flight 402 extensively, used it as a case study in crisis management. What went right? What went wrong? How to improve response? Captain Richard Brennan retired from flying 6 months later, said he was ready to spend time with grandchildren. First Officer Amanda Chen was promoted to captain within a year, flew for another 23 years before retiring. The 53 passengers who survived that day formed a bond. They reunited every year on March 7th, remembered what they went through, celebrated being alive. Some struggled with PTSD. Therapy helped. Time helped more, but they all carried March 7th, 1993, with them forever. The cockpit voice recorder tape was sealed by the FBI. Classified. Parts of it were used in training, but the full recording, with all the screaming, the gunfire, the terror, remained locked away. Some things the FBI decided didn't need to be heard by the public. The last entry in the official report, filed by Agent Victoria Nash, said simply this: Flight 402 represents both the worst and best of human nature. 5 men willing to kill 56 innocent people for money, and 56 people who refused to surrender to fear. In the end, courage won. It doesn't always. But on March 7, 1993, it did. And that's worth remembering. Subscribe now and leave in the comments: what city are you watching from?